Hello everyone, back tuning into the 5th Winter 2019-2020 update from GWV.com. So I've done 4 updates so far, as well as 1 seasonal model roundup. So we are well on our way with winter updates. In fact, we're not all that far away from the halfway point. We've got 13 winter updates penciled in before the end of November. So we're a little bit under halfway, but not all that far under halfway. At this stage. So we're going to go through the methodology. We're going to have a look at some analogues to start off with. We'll be picking up this 5th update exactly where we left off with last week's 4th update, having a look at more summer data. I'm going to go through the methodology. At the end of the video, we'll do a little bit of September pattern matching. I've got a few analogues together myself for September pattern matches, and that'll be at the end of the video. Big thank you to Analogues Guru James. Big thank you to our Analogues Guru James Acril for getting the analogues together for us. Thank you so much, James, for doing that. And also thank you to Richard Short for supplying us with the GWV's Winter 2019-2020 Updates GIF. So this is going to be a long video, of course, as always with the Winter Updates. We've got 70 tabs to get through here, so I imagine we're going to be approaching an hour with this update. Excuse me. I've got a little bit of a tickle in my throat as well, so I may have to stop and have a drink of water at some point through the video. I am going to put in a couple of breaks so you can all go off and stretch your legs, have a cup of tea, get some biscuits and whatnot, and I can get myself a little drink and give me throat of water. So there will be a couple of breaks through this video, but it is going to be another epic, obviously, with 70 tabs to go through. Now, this is going to be a long video, so it will be placed on the Winter Updates page with a written summary going over everything that we discussed in the video, and I'll get that placed on the Winter Updates page probably around 8 o'clock this evening. I'm a little bit late with doing that this year because at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6, there's going to be a live chat on the GWV's YouTube channel. So I'll be taking as many of your questions as I can, and I'll be seeing what you thought to this winter update. This is all building up to winter forecast, of course, so these winter updates and the season model roundups are all building up the picture, building, until we get to the 1st of December, and that will be the day that we release the GWV's.com winter 2019-2020 forecast. So we're still in the having fun stage at the moment, but things will be getting serious, or more serious, with these updates as we progress through the next few weeks, I would have thought. Right, I think that's everything I've got to tell you. With 70 tabs to go through, I think better get on with it. So we're going to begin, as I say, picking up exactly where we left off with last week's for Winter 2019-2020 update. So we looked at summer central England temperatures, the summer CET, last week, and the winters that followed, summers with a similar CET to summer 2019. This week, we're looking at summer 2019 rainfall, and summers that, or winters that followed summers with a similar summer rainfall. So we came out with an England and Wales precipitation of around 275 millimetres with this summer. So it was a pretty wet summer, actually, and you see from the anomaly map at the UK Met Office here that most parts of the country did have above average rainfall during this summer. Some parts of East Anglia and the extreme south of England were a little bit drier, but elsewhere it was a wet summer, especially through central and northern parts of the country, so Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, much of North and West Wales, or North and East Wales, and into the Midlands. Those areas did have quite a wettish summer, to say the least. So we've looked, or James, I suppose, our analogues guru, has looked at past summers that had a England and Wales precipitation of around 275 millimetres, and then we've created the analogues for the winters that followed those summers. So the first summer that had an England and Wales precipitation, of around 275 millimetres was the summer of 1855. The winter of 1855-1856 looks like this. It was a very unsettled winter. It had an area of above average heights to the north around Greenland and Iceland, so it was a bit of a blocking signal. But it had low pressure from the Atlantic into much of Western Europe. The jet stream was on a bit of a southerly track, so I think there was some quite cold weather at times during this winter of 1855-1856, a cold, wet type winter with that one. Our next summer, with England and Wales precipitation rainfall of around 275 millimetres, was 1878. The winter of 1878-1879 was a ferociously cold winter following that summer, with an England Wales precipitation of around a similar level to summer 2019. So this one with extensive northern blocking, big area of northern blocking over Greenland. And it had low pressure underneath it and pulling in those cold east or northeasterly winds. So a very cold winter, the winter of 1878-1879, bitterly cold. In what was a very cold year, of course. The last time we had a CET under 8 degrees for a year was back in 1879. That was an exceptionally cold year and cold winter. Our next summer is that of 1880, and the winter that followed that is 1880-1881. And this is another cold winter, interestingly. So this analogues package for summer precipitation is starting to look a little bit more interesting, I have to say, compared to last week's CT, summer CT analogue. So this one, with blocking up towards Greenland, a big area of high pressure towards Greenland and below average heights running underneath it, was a very cold and wintry and snowy January in 1881. But the winter of 1880-1881 was generally a cold winter. Our next winter is 1881-1882, following again England and Wales precipitation of around 275 millimetres. This one was a quieter winter. It was a much drier winter, above average heights centred around much of central, northern and western Europe, below average heights up to north, no real blocking at all. That's an anticyclonic, a milder winter. The cold with that is probably going down into the east and the southeast of Europe, but for us probably a relatively dry and fairly mildish winter in 1881-1882. The next winter is 1890-1891, again following summer rainfall of around 275 millimetres, so close to summer 2019 rainfall. This one is an anticyclonic winter again, but the difference is that the high pressure is further north with easterly winds, and it does contain the coldest December on record, certainly for the CT, December 1890, although the December to remember in 2010 did get pretty close to December 1890. Then we go through to 1892, so plenty of years back in the 1800s here. This one is a milder, wetter type winter of 1891-1892, with below average heights over top of the country, above average heights out in the Atlantic. Winds are in from the west. That's just a milder, wetter type winter in 1891-1892. And then our next winter is another cold one. Look at this. This is 1894-1895. That was a severely cold winter with below average heights to our south and a strong sort of northern blocking signal to the north. And with this one, we're bringing in easterly winds. So there was a long run from 1895 to 1940 where we didn't have any negative CET months. We didn't have any what would be described as severely cold CET months. So 1895 was the last really severe winter until 1940, although there were a couple of very cold winters in the first 40 years of the 20th century, particularly thinking of 1917 and also 1929. But for a severe winter, it's really 1895 to 1940. A long gap then to 1923. So the next time we had a summer with England and Wales rainfall of 275 millimetres was in 1923. The winter of 1920. So actually that's wrong. What I'm going to look there is wrong. So let's just very quickly change that. So that needs to be 22-23. Okay, so this is the winter of 1922-1923, following the summer of 1922, which was a wet summer in 1922. The winter of 1922-1923 is wet and unsettled and mild generally, bringing the wind from a westerly direction. So it's Atlantic driven and it's pretty mild and also quite wet in the winter of 1922-1923. The next winter is 1924-1925. This one also mild and unsettled, low pressure in the Atlantic, high pressure across Central Eastern Europe, and there come those southwesterly winds. So quite a mild and wet winter again in 1924-1925. The next winter is 1936-1937. This one with low pressure to the northwest, some high pressure to the east-northeast. So this one again, relatively mild winter, I think, with winds coming in from the west. Then we've got 1950-1951. This is a more interesting winter again. It doesn't look all that interesting from the reanalysis, but it does contain a very cold December. Otherwise, January and February of 1951 were relatively mild. But in December, we did have a mini December to remember. It wasn't as cold as 2010, but it was a pretty cold December in 1950, and the giveaway is this high pressure that's sort of in the North Atlantic and going up towards Greenland. When the cold went, though, it was pretty much gone, although there were a few cold snaps through January and February 1951. The next winter, following a summer rainfall of around 275 millimetres, is 1957-1958. This one is also another pretty cold winter. Above average heights around the North Atlantic into the south of Greenland. Below average heights are over Scandinavia. This is allowing the winds to be coming in from a northerly direction overall. Starts off relatively mild with this winter. In contrast to 50-51, this one actually has quite a mild December, but then it gets colder as the winter progresses. It has a very cold March in 1958. The next winter is 1960-1961, and this one is Atlantic-driven, mild and wet. So the wind's coming in from west. There's a lot of cold winter in the cold winters in the 1960s. 60-61 isn't really one of them. Next winter is 66-67. So this one's a very unsettled winter. It has below average heights sort of to the east of us. Above average heights are kind of to the north. So there is a bit of a blocking signal. Again, it's not one of the colder winters of the 1960s. It's actually one of the milder winters of the 1960s. However, this is a cold 1960s winter. This one is 68-69, 1968-1969. Again, following summer rainfall of around 275 millimetres for England and Wales. This one is real northern blocking. Look at that big blocking area of high pressure around Greenland, and low pressure below average heights are to our south. Jet stream is down here as well. We're bringing in cold easterly winds. It has a pretty chilly December with a white Christmas in 1968, a mild and wet January, and then the cold weather really locks in February of 1969 with a really, really cold February. The next winter is 1971-1972. This one quite an unsettled winter. Below average heights to the west, above average heights to the east. 71-72 is generally a mild winter, although I think it does have one quite potent cold snap at the end of January 1972. The next winter is 1980-1981, following an England-Wales precipitation around 275 millimetres. This one with above average heights in the Atlantic, below average heights to the east. There are regular cold snaps in the winter of 80-81. It's not remembered as a particularly cold winter. It's kind of overshadowed between the 78-79 and then, I suppose, 81-82. And then the next one is 1988-1989. with a similar England and Wales precipitation to what we had this year. This one is a dry and very mild winter with above average heights just centred around much of central and southern Europe. Look at all the low pressure up to the north. You can see where the jet stream is in the winter of 1988, 1989. Jet streams up there. That's a dry and mild winter. And another very mild one is 97-98. This one, of course, is the Super Nino winter. So it has this large area of high pressure stretching up from North Africa to Northern Europe with lots of low pressure in the Atlantic, drawing up those southerly winds. It's an exceptionally mild winter, and particularly so in February of 1998. And then we've got 2008, 2009. So you see how a lot of these very poor winters, poor summers I should say, such as 1988 and 2008, are sort of in this analogues package. So it just goes to show you what a wet summer this was. I believe it was actually the wettest, warmest, wettest summer that we've ever had. So very unusual summer in a lot of respects, summer of 2019. Anyway, back to winter. This is how 2008-2009 looks. So this is the first of the cold winters that begin with this winter 08-09 and finish with the winter of 2012-2013. This one, below average heights to our south, above average heights to our north-northeast. You can see bringing an easterly flow on average. Yes, it does have a very cold and snowy spell during the first half of February 2009. And then finally, for these summers with an England and Wales rainfall of around 275 millimetres, we have the winter of 2016, or the summer of 2016, and the winter of 2016-2017. And this one is a dry and anticyclonic winter. Winter of 2016-17. Winds are sort of east-southeast. It's not a cold winter, it's actually quite a mild winter. Just one of those very, very dull and dreary and quite boring winters that we do get occasionally. So lots of dry weather, but also really quiet conditions. So putting all of that together, this is how things are looking when we combine all of those Decembers, all of those years, how the Decembers are looking following summers with an England and Wales precipitation of around 275 millimetres. So it's an unsettled signal for these Decembers. Low pressure tends to be through much of Western Europe. We have a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic. Bit of a Scandinavian high and a bit of a high pressure over western parts of Russia, but not really strong enough to do much for us. This generally, I think, is favouring quite an unsettled, wet month, probably relatively mild, but you wouldn't rule out the chance of a few cold snaps with that mid-Atlantic ridge. All Januaries combined look much more interesting though. The northern blocking signal does increase quite substantially when we combine all of the Januaries together following this summer England and Wales precipitation. So blocking tends to be up to our north with low pressure to the south, and that of course favours bringing in these easterly winds. So combining all of the Januaries together, we could be looking at some colder conditions there. It eases off a little bit though, interestingly, for all Februaries combined. So still with a bit of a northern blocking signal up towards Greenland. The ridging seems to collapse sort of to eastern parts of Europe, and we find ourselves under this area of low pressure. So perhaps after a colder interval during the Januaries combined, we tend to expect that the Februaries, all Februaries combined, go rather milder. But then the blocking signal comes back again for March. So maybe a bit of an on-off type cold pattern here. It certainly looks like blocking really comes back as we bring all of those Marches together with above average heights again tending to be around Greenland. So blocking around Greenland. Low pressure is underneath it. Jet stream is doing something a little bit like that. So overall, it looks like January and March are the two colder months with this analogues package, and December and February may be favouring something a little bit milder. But of course, there are exceptions in that, because we've got 1969 as an analogue here. So that had a very cold, wintry February, of course. And then finally, bringing it all together, this is how all winters combined are looking following a summer rainfall of around 275 millimetres, so very close to summer 2019. And with this one, we find that we have above average heights to our northwest and over across eastern parts of Europe. Below average heights tend to be over and to the south of the country. So you see there is a bit of a blocking signal. It's an unsettled signal overall for these winters, but there is blocking available, and it's primarily in January, and then after easing off a bit in February, coming back into March. And that's pretty much it, I think, for the summer data. So we've looked at summer CTs, we've looked at summer rainfall just now. We did a little bit of summer pattern matching as well. I think that's pretty much exhausted all avenues for the summer. A mixed bag, but I think definitely this week's analogues package. You have to let me know what you think in the comments, and also in the live chat later on this afternoon on the YouTube channel between 5 and 6 o'clock. Let me know what you think then. I think overall this analogues package definitely has a lot more going for it in terms of a cold winter. I think there's definitely much more to play with there in terms of a cold winter, although the overall all charts combined, or months combined, or winters combined, don't really point to a cold winter. There are so many within the analogues package that we've got there, but I think possibly this one does favour a colder winter more than last week's summer CT data. Let me know what you think about that. Right, I'm going to pause the video there, and going to have a little drink of water. Why don't you go and get yourself a cup of tea and some biscuits, or maybe something a little bit healthier than that. We'll meet back in around 2 seconds' time, and then we're going to go through the GWV's methodology, starting off with Arctic sea ice extent and Siberian snow cover. So I'll see you back here in around 2 seconds' time. Okay, we're back, and we're ready to resume the 5th Winter 2019-2020 update at GWV. So, before the break, we had a look at summer rainfall. Summer's very close to the rainfall that we had during summer 2019 and the winters that followed both summers. Quite an interesting analogues package, I think, perhaps favouring something rather colder, certainly compared to last week's CT data, and definitely January and March sticking out as the 2 months that could be the coldest of the winter months. That's it for summer data. We're ready to go on now and have a look at the rest of the GWV's methodology. There'll be one more break in around 20 minutes or so. So when we get to that, I'll let you know. But let's get on now with some more of the 5th Winter 2019-2020 update. And we're going to have a look at Arctic sea ice extent. It's probably going to be the last time we look at this. So the grey line here is the trend line. You can see we are very much in a downwards trend with Arctic sea ice at the moment. So we've got our dates along the bottom in terms of monthly periods, and the amount of ice in terms of millions of squares per kilometres along the side. So you can see from the trend line, which is this grey line, but it's very much in the downwards period through to September. Let's put in then 2019 so we can see how we're comparing to average. So obviously been a very, very big melt season indeed. The blue line shows that we have come out well underneath trend, obviously, so we've been down here. In the last week or so, this is starting to tick up, though, so the refreeze has begun. That's why I say it's probably be the last time we look at this. I don't think we need to look at it again through this season. The refreeze is now underway. So our minimum extent was just there around a week ago. So how does that compare to past years? Well, let's put in 2012. That's the death spiral, of course. So you can see we came up under the death spiral, though for quite a while we was actually on a par with 2012 for death spiral year. In fact, we was under it for a while back in the summer, but then we sort of diverged, right? We pulled away from it through the peak of the melt season during September. So the red dashed line is 2012. We didn't have a record minimum for Arctic sea ice extent, but we did have a very, very big Arctic melt season indeed. Let's put in last year, 2012, if we can. So you can see we was under 2018, I should say. So you can see we was under 2018. We was also under 2017 in terms of Arctic sea ice extent. We was on a par with 2016, although we are now under 2016. That one is 2015, so we was under 2015, and then well under 2013 and 2014. Those 2 years are up here. So after the death spiral of 2012, interestingly, we sort of rebounded a little bit in 2013 and 2014, a little bit unexpectedly so. So quite obviously, this has been the second biggest Arctic sea ice melt season in the satellite era. That only goes back to 1979. If I place in 1979, the first year, look how much further, how much more Arctic sea ice there was during the melt season, with that sort of lavender coloured line just there, how much more there was in the melt season of 1979. So very striking difference between the first year of the satellite era in 79 and this year. So the second biggest Arctic sea ice melt season in 2019, but not quite as big as we had. No record minimum such as we had in 2012. I said it'll probably be the last time we look at that for this season of winter updates. Moving on to Siberian snow cover. So this is showing what the situation was last week when we had a look at Siberian and Eurasian snow cover. So we're doing pretty well for snow cover at this point last week. We have these white areas just here. That's where we've got snow. The eastern part of Siberia. By the way, this yellow area is where there's Arctic sea ice. You can see how the blue area has opened up there. That's where all of the ice has melted. But of course now it is beginning to refreeze. But coming back to Siberian snow cover, so that's how things were looking last week. This is the very latest, and it shows that yes, definitely we've increased the snow a little bit once again. So if we look at last week compared to this week, I think there has been a slight increase in snow cover, especially through this central part of Russia perhaps, but also a little bit around there and around there. This is mainly something that we look at during October, see how quickly that snow line is advancing across Russia, but we started looking at it quite early in this season. So compared to last week, I think we can definitely say we have seen an increase in snow cover this week. How does that compare to past years? Well, this is how things were looking at the same point in 2018. So I think quite clearly we're above 2018 in terms of snow cover. Moving on to 2017, so we're probably a bit behind 2017, although the areas that have snow cover are a little bit different, so probably not all that much in it once you even it all out, but I think overall probably a bit behind 2017 at this point, and probably behind 2016 again, but again the areas that are covered are different, but I think 2016 had more snow cover at this point compared to this year. But that's 2015. So probably been ahead of 2015 actually for total snow coverage. That's 2014. We're quite well behind 2014, interestingly. So we have fallen behind 2014. That's 2013. What do you think about that? We're probably behind 2013 too. That's 2012, so barely any snow at this point in 2012. We are ahead of 2012 at this point. You remember back in 2012, that's the first year we did these winter updates. There was a very, very rapid advance of snow cover across Siberia and Russia during the second half of October 2012. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for. A little bit less so in September. But obviously at the moment we're well ahead of 2012. That's 2011. I think we are ahead of 2011 as well. That one is 2010. So what do you think about that? The areas that are covered are a little bit different. We're probably on a par with 2010. We're ahead of 2009. We're probably ahead of 2008 as well overall. We're ahead definitely of 2007 and 2006 and 2005. Quite well ahead of 2005, which barely had any snow cover anywhere across Siberia at this point. That's 2004. I think we're ahead of that one. 2003. So, yeah, I think we'll say we're ahead of 2003 as well. We're behind 2002. Probably quite closely matched to 2001, although the areas that are covered are a little bit different. Probably ahead a little bit of 2000, that's 1999, probably quite close to that, and that's 1998, again, probably quite close to that. You have to bear in mind that the areas that are covered from year to year are varying, so this is kind of like a guess, really, a guesstimate based on what we're seeing. Yeah, I do think that we're not doing too badly for snow, although obviously there are years that are ahead of us now. So, we'll be looking at this. We're looking at this more, I think, through October. See how quickly, as I say, that snow line advances across Siberia and Russia. I know it's one of the things that a lot of people enjoy with these winter updates, seeing how quickly that snow line pushes across Russia and Siberia. But we're not doing too badly for the end of September. And now this is how the oceans were looking when we did last week's fourth winter update. So we've got our three areas of interest, of course. We've got the ENSO region just here, and then we've got the Northern Pacific Ocean over there, then we've got the North Atlantic Ocean over there. So that's how the oceans were looking when we did last week's fourth winter 2019-2020 update. Let's take you through to the very latest, if we can, and that's it. So that's how the oceans are looking this week. Very little difference, I think, between the oceans from last week to this week. So dealing with the ENSO region, first of all. We talked about this extensively last week. I won't go into it in as much detail this week, but we've still got this weak signature, what seems to be a weak signature for La Nina in the eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, where the sea surface temperature anomalies are a little bit below average. That looks like a weak La Nina type signal. In the western part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean around here, it's warmer than average, so possibly still a slight signal for El Nino. Overall, probably averaging out close to ENSO neutral. But you do have to say that this eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean just here does look rather Nina-esque. Going further northwards into the northern Pacific Ocean, again, if we compare last week to this week, we see that the sea surface temperature anomalies are significantly above average still in that northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean, of the Northern Pacific Ocean. If anything, possibly they have warmed up to some degree compared to last week. And then in the North Atlantic, again going back to last week and comparing to this week, very little difference. The North Atlantic remains in quite a warm state, quite a warm signal. We have lost the cold average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland to some degree, although they are still running a little bit above average. And then down in the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean, we see that the sea surface temperature anomalies are relatively warm there as well. Overall, the Atlantic is in quite a warm state, the North Pacific is in quite a warm state, but we still have this very, very slight signature, and it is a slight signature, for a weak La Nina in the eastern part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Now, I talked about the SOI last week, the Southern Oscillation Index, which was going through a bit of a crash, going through a very negative phase. That's beginning to come back up a little bit now. So if I scroll you down to the daily numbers, you can see what we was talking about last week in the fourth winter update. So we had the SOI going down to minus 20 there on the 18th of September, minus 35 on the 19th of September, minus 27 on the 20th of September, and minus 21 on, minus 19, I should say, on the 21st of September. So very, very negative numbers. And when the SOI is that negative, then the atmospheric state in the Southern Ocean is going to be reflective of an El Nino type setup. So despite the ocean actually seemingly having a weak signature for a weak La Nina, the atmospheric setup was very much last week anyway, in the weeks before, pointed towards El Nino. But if you come up to the latest numbers, these are them, and not as negative. In fact, have had a few weekly positive numbers in recent days. So we've got the 24th of September at just minus 2.43. Then the 25th of September goes positive at plus 6. The 26th of September positive again at plus 2.3. And the 27th positive at plus 2. Those are only very weekly positive, but it is a sign that possibly that very, very negative burst of the SOI has run out of steam a little bit, although the 28th of September comes out negative at minus 1.66. So It's inconclusive, but we may be starting to see the first indications that the SOI is beginning to lift out that very negative phase that it was in. See from the red line, which is the 30-day average for the SOI, that after bottoming out around there, it's possibly just starting to tick up ever so slightly, but only very slightly. It is a little bit inconclusive. CFSV2 looks like it's backing off from the weak El Nino signature that it had last week as well. So the black dash line here is the ensemble mean. We've got the temperature on the side, the dates are on the bottom. So around ENSO neutral now is definitely the forecast from the CFSV2, and some of the more recent ensemble blue members from the CFSV2 indicated by these blue lines you see. Some of them are actually been in weak La Nina territory, although we do have a few up here that are in weak El Nino territory. Overall, this is still looking like it's going to be an ENSO neutral winter. Now, the next thing I want to go on to is Atlantic hurricane activity, but I have mislaid the page from Wikipedia. So I'm going to have to pause the video just for a second, and I'll be back very soon. And then we will have a look at Atlantic hurricane activity. This is not part of the schedule breaks, by the way, but I have penciled in. But I'll see you anyway in around 2 seconds' time. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume the 5th Winter 2019-2020 update. Sorry about that. As I was going through the sea surface temperature anomalies, it suddenly dawned on me that I hadn't got the 2019 Atlantic hurricane season page up from Wikipedia. And if I hadn't remembered it, then would have been without it for this update. So this is it. Anyway, this is the 2019 Atlantic hurricane season page. So if we scroll down to all of the latest numbers, these are the scores on the doors. So we have for this hurricane season so far up to 28th of September, we have 13 total tropical depressions. We have 12 total tropical storms, 5 hurricanes, and 3 category 3 or above hurricanes. All of those numbers are up from last week, so this is turning into a rather active hurricane season for 2019 after a relatively quiet start. This is how the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart is looking. So the black line shows where we've been with the AO, the red line shows the end where the GFS ensembles forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Remember, it's just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms. It just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. So when the AO is positive, you're going to have low pressure over the pole, but when the AO is negative, you're going to have high pressure blocking up over North Pole. Of course, in winter, blocking is the route getting cold air out of pole and down into the mid-latitudes. We're currently at around neutral with the Arctic Oscillation. In the next few days, going into the beginning of October, we're going to go a little bit negative with the AO before it then pops back up through the second week of October, probably into more positive territory. Does look as though since around the middle of August, the AO has generally entered a rather more positive phase compared to where it was back in the summer when the Arctic Oscillation was very much trending negative. This is the NAO observed and forecast chart, so it's the same idea. The black line shows where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation, red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the North Atlantic Oscillation to go. So we had a very prolonged phase of negativity of the NAO, and of course that's where we started off with these winter updates with our analogues looking at Mays that had a negative NAO and the winters that followed them, and that was very much pointing towards colder than average. Although the AO has seemingly entered a more positive phase, the same is not true for the NAO. So the NAO did start to trend out of its prolonged negative phase during the second half of August, and through the first half of September, actually the NAO did go positive, but since around the middle of September, the NAO has generally been trending downwards again. We are very negative with the NAO at the moment, and the GFS ensemble, certainly for the next week to 10 days, forecasting the NAO to stay in very negative territory too. Does try to stage a little bit of a recovery back towards neutral by the middle of October, but that's a very, very long way off, and even then, it's not particularly convincing. It looks like the NAO is going to be in a negative phase through the first half of October, while the AO is rather more positive, perhaps. So that's a little bit of a flip on what we normally tend to see, and it does sort of tell us that the Atlantic could still be set up towards negativity of the NAO, which is something that we have seen a lot of course, over the past few months. This is from weatheriscool.com, and it's showing the zonal winds at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over the North Pole. There's loads of coloured lines here, but I haven't got time to go through all of them, tell you what each individual line represents. If you want to know, then have a look at the first winter 2019-2020 update that we did on the 1st of September. We do, in that one, go through each line and tell you what they're all showing. But the most important line is really the black line, because that is the trend. So you can see at this point of the year, we've got the temperatures are on the side, or the strength, I suppose, on the side of the zonal winds, and we've got the dates on the bottom. So you can see that at this point in the year, the zonal winds are strengthening, they're becoming stronger, indicated by this black line ticking up, reaching its peak around early January. We've been quite weaker than average with the zonal winds through the past few months, although where we are right now, indicated by this blue line, is around sort of trend. GFS ensembles, indicated by these green lines just here, are actually going a little bit weaker with the zonal winds at 10 HPA once again. So it looks like we will see weakening of the zonal winds in the next sort of week or two, if the GFS ensembles are right. The other coloured lines, there's 3 pink and 1 blue. They're from the CFS V2, the long-range model. And, of course, this is October just here. This is November just here. That's December just there. So during October and possibly into November, looks like the CFS is now forecasting the zonal winds to strengthen a little bit through the second half of October, maybe going a little bit stronger than average. But then in November, it looks like they weaken. We do have one ensemble member there, but by the beginning of December, is actually seemingly going for something of a sudden stratospheric warming with a reversal of the zonal winds, which will be very unusual to get that at the beginning of December. So a bit of strengthening of the zonal winds being forecast for the second half of October, then possibly weakening into November. And this is showing the QBO. So I showed you this last week. This is from NASA. It looks as though the change from from westerly to the easterly QBO was beginning to level off last week. This week, it looks like we might be starting to descend the easterly QBO down into the lower levels of the atmosphere again. So on this chart, we've got westerly QBOs depicted by the brown coloured area, and easterly QBOs being depicted by the blue coloured area. Dates along the bottom of the chart, of course. So last week, what we were seeing is that this is the beginning of the easterly QBO, but we think we're going to go into during this coming winter. So that's the beginning of the easterly QBO up there at the very top level of the atmosphere. That's 10 HPA, where we've just talked about in terms of the stratosphere. Got to get the easterly QBO down to around 30 to 50 HPA to be able to say that we are in an easterly QBO. So as long as the easterly QBO stays up there, just at the very top of the atmosphere and stratosphere, we won't be able to say that we are in an easterly QBO. However, if you look very, very closely, you can see some of these blue coloured lines in the past couple of days or so are just beginning to penetrate down a little bit into that brown area. So what we're looking for, of course, is to move this easterly QBO downwards rather like that. We're going to do something a bit like that, we think. So we wasn't seeing that last week. That's something that's appeared this week. And it could be that we're beginning to move this easterly QBO lower down after a little bit of a stall during September. As we explained last week, it's not particularly unusual to see a stall in the transition, in the descent, I suppose, from a westerly to an easterly QBO. So see a stall in the descent of the easterly QBO through atmosphere. Next week, we will have September's easterly QBO number for you. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. Don't be surprised if it's on a par with August. It might even show a little bit of an uptick, but don't be overly concerned if it does show a slight uptick in the strength of the westerly QBO this month. Then we've got solar activity. So this is how the solar disk is looking on our side of this today from solarham.net. Completely spotless with the solar disk today. No sunspots at all. Solar activity is therefore at very low levels and is expected to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days, being reported by Solarham. This is the GWV Links 5th winter update solar activity tracker, updated by James Ackrill to the 28th of September. Again, this is something we've been talking about in the videos so much over the past few winter updates, but also before that. Actually, we are into solar minimum now. You can see where the switch to solar minimum, true solar minimum, happened back in May. So we've got the dates on the bottom of the chart, and of course our trend lines are being depicted by the thick green and thick red line. The orange line is depicting each individual day's worth of sunspots. You can see how the trend lines are just flatlining away on the floor of the chart. So we have the odd day that has a sunspot, not many of them. The days that don't have sunspots are now significantly outnumbering the days that do have sunspots, which is a flip on what we had before May, when most of the days actually had sunspots and were outnumbering the days that didn't have sunspots. You see these orange lines you see, albeit these are very low levels of sunspots, very minimal levels of sunspots, but most days before May did have sunspots. Since May, most days do not have sunspots, and this tells us that we are clearly in a true and definitive solar minimum. This is likely to be the solar minimum winter of solar cycle number 24, and in a few weeks time, I think it'll be sometime during October, probably the second half of the month, we will do a solar special with winter updates, and we'll have a look at analogues, show you what tends to be favoured by solar minimum winter. It's possible this winter could be the first winter of solar cycle number 25, but I think it's unlikely. I think this will still be a solar cycle 24 winter, albeit probably the final winter of solar cycle number 25 and true solar minimum. Right, so we have talked for 3/4 of an hour, just over 45 minutes. I'm going to pause the video there. This is a schedule break this time. I'm going to pause the video there. When we come back, we're going to do one final section. We're going to have a bit of fun, a bit of a laugh, and look at some September pattern matches. That's what we're going to close the video up with for this 5th winter 2019-2020 update. Hope you're enjoying it, and I'm going to see you back here in around 2 seconds time when we'll have the final part of your 5th winter update. Okay, we're back, and we are ready to resume the final part of the 5th winter 2019-2020 update. I hope you've enjoyed this update and found it interesting and informative. Please give us a like if you have. Let us know in the comments what you think. Of course, going to do the live chat between 5 and 6 o'clock on the GWV's YouTube channel, so you'll be able to let me know then what you think. To close out this 5th winter update, we're going to have a bit of fun and do a little bit of September pattern matching, finally. So this is how September 2019 looked in terms of the 500 millibar reanalysis up to the 24th of September. I wouldn't expect this to change a great deal from this. So rather anti-cyclonic month. Above average heights have tended to be centred sort of to our west, a large ridge just there. Low pressures tended to be around Greenland, also over Scandinavia. Notice northern blocking though has had high pressure up towards the North Pole and in the Arctic, and also quite a bit of ridging down through North America. So I've gone back through the years and I've attempted to come up with years that are a close-ish sort of match to September 2019. You're never going to get like for like, so these are just the closest that I've been able to find. We've got September 1855, I should say. So I'm not that keen on this one, actually. It does have the above average heights sort of centred to our west. It has below average heights up to the north. It has a little bit of high pressure in North America, Canada as well. But overall, I'm not that keen on September 1855. Let me know by way of the comments and in the live chat which years you think are the closest match to September 2019. I don't think that's a particularly good one. But let's go on to the next one that I found that I could find, which is September 1878. I think this one's a little bit better. Actually, it has, again, this ridge out to the west-southwest of us. It extends back to quite a bit of high pressure over in northern parts of America as well. Has a little bit of a blocking signal towards the North Pole, and then it has low pressure towards the north of the UK. So low pressure is kind of like in the Norwegian Sea. Again, it's not a like-for-like match, but I think that one is a little bit closer to 2019, September 2019. Then we've got 1900, again, with the area of above average heights just sort of centred to our west and out into the Atlantic, extending back into North America. It's lower with the heights to our north, so lots of low pressure during September 1900 to the north. Again, it's sort of around 2019, September 2019, but it isn't by any means a perfect match. We've got 1910. So this one, again, with the above average heights. The primary thing that I focused on was the above average heights sitting just to the west of us. Again, not quite so keen, though, on September 1910. 1955 with low pressure up to the north just there. High pressure is out to the west. That one had a little bit of northern blocking also in September 1955. Less ridging over North America, though. This is 1978, September 1978. So what do we think about that one? I think the position of the high pressure to the southwest is pretty good, actually. It has low pressure kind of in the North Atlantic just there and over there, and it does have this area of high pressure blocking up towards the Arctic as well and extending down to Canada. That's in a very similar position to where we had it during September 2019. So again, it's not a perfect match, but I think that's possibly a slightly closer one. September 1978. This is September 1990. So again, the above average heights are out to the west. This is a little bit deeper with the low pressure to the north, though. So the low pressure in September 1990 is to our north, extending through Scandinavia. Not quite so keen on that one, perhaps. 2004 is the next September that I could find. That's a reasonably close match, I think. So that one with the high pressure sort of to the west-southwest, just low pressure around Greenland and also across Scandinavia. Quite a bit of high pressure across North America and a little bit of northern blocking just there as well. I think that's possibly the best match so far. Again, do let me know in the comments what you think, and also in the live chat. I think that's a pretty decent one. I think that's possibly the best match. 2004, September 2004 to September 2019. This is 2007. Again, very similar with the area of above average heights just to our west. It does extend back into North America as well. A little bit more extensive with low pressure to the north, though, and also extending down to eastern parts of Europe. So not quite so keen on that one. 2007. And then finally, we've got September 2009, which again, I think is a fairly decent looking match to 2019. It has the high pressure just over to the west of the country. It has low pressure up to our north. Just there, has quite a bit of high pressure across North America. What do you think to 2009, September 2009 to September 2019? Again, it's not like for like, but I think there is a similarity. I say, do let me know in the comments what you think, and also let me know in the live chat we can do on YouTube between 5 and 6 o'clock. Finally, just having a look at those winters. So, a few of those have actually cropped up in the first batch of analogues that we started off with, that our good friend James did for us. So, for example, the first winter is 1855, 1856. Again, a bit of northern blocking, seen up towards Greenland, lots of low pressure. In the Atlantic, quite a cool and wet winter in that one. The next one, of course, is 1878, 1879. That's a severely cold winter, as we explained in the first part of the video. So, lots of northern blocking around Greenland. Low pressure is forced a long way southwards, the jet stream south as well. That's a severe winter in 1878, 1879. The next one is 1900, 1901. This one, again, quite a coldish looking winter. High pressure up towards Greenland. Low pressure as a trough under underneath it. That looks like we're bringing in pretty cold east or northeasterly winds. That's a fairly cold winter to start us off in 20th century. Next winter is 1910-1911. This is a mild and wet winter with low pressure in from off the Atlantic into west of Europe. That's just a very mild and wet winter for 1910-1911. 1955-1956 was the next one. So this one with low pressure sitting to our south and east, high pressure out to the northwest and also to the northeast, and potentially bringing in east or northeasterly winds. Has a very cold February in 1956, severely cold February 1956. 78-79 shows up next, another cold winter. Quite an interesting analogues package this, but do remember it's only a bit of fun what we're doing here. This isn't going to form part of the winter of the winter forecast. It's just a little bit of fun to close out this fifth winter 2019-2020 update. Northern blocking over Greenland. Jet stream is shoved southwards as well, so that, of course, cold winter 78-79, the famous winter of discontent. 1990-1991 has high pressure over Scandinavia and low pressure out to west of us. That's favouring bringing in easterly winds. Of course, it has a very cold spell during the first half of February 1991. Then we've got 2005-2006. Looks like it should be a cold winter, but it isn't, particularly. I mean, from a reanalysis perspective, the 500 millibar height anomaly, it looks like that's a perfect setup to be a very cold winter, but it just doesn't come together in 2005, 2006. It's just generally a rather dull grey winter. It does get cold late on. 2007-8 is our next winter. That one with high pressure across Central Europe bringing up southwest winds. That's generally quite a mild and dry winter in 2007-2008. And then finally, we've got 2009-10, and this one, of course, is a cold winter with above average heights blocking around Greenland, and low pressure is underneath it down here with the jet stream. That's a very cold winter for 09-10. That was the coldest winter since 1979 across most of the UK, and for Scotland, the coldest winter since 1963. Putting those September pattern matches together, this is what we find. So all Decembers combined tends to have some ridging up to the north with low pressure over the UK. It looks like a rather wet signal for the Decembers. There is a bit of northern blocking, so there could be some colder Decembers mixed in there. Overall, probably not favouring a particularly cold December. But in January, the northern blocking signal is increased here with these September pattern matches. So high pressure begins to appear within the northern latitudes, low pressure with the jet stream being pushed southwards. Yeah, we very much favour bringing in easterly winds in the Januaries. All February's combined get even more blocked, and this looks like these September pattern matches are very much favouring strong northern blocking around Greenland, with the trough of low pressure in a perfect position, really, to be bringing in easterly winds. So probably these September pattern matches favour a very cold February, if anything, but January could be cold as well, of course. And March, it goes on into March, actually, with these September pattern matches with low pressure to our south blocking around Greenland and Iceland. Easterly winds being favoured in the Marches following those September pattern matches. And finally, putting all winters together with those September pattern matches, it's pretty mouth-watering, but remember, it is only for fun. But those September pattern matches do favour northern blocking big time around Greenland with low pressure underneath it, and yeah, we do favour bringing in those easterly winds with those September pattern matches. Next week's 6th winter 2019-2020 update will pick up exactly where we leave off here, and we'll look at some proper September data. We will look at either September CT data or September rainfall data, not sure which one we'll do, but we will be looking at September analogues for next week's 6th winter 2019-2020 update. Finally, just say that if you've been enjoying these this winter update and all of the other winter updates, please consider giving us a donation through PayPal. So visit Gazlo's PayPal page. If you would like to give us a donation, you just come here, sign in to your PayPal account, and then you can send whatever amount of money you would like to Gazworthies. You're helping us to pay for the website and keep the content online. Alternatively, you can become a patron for Gazworthies. We have 62 patrons for Gazworthies so far, so hello and big thank you to our 62 patrons. Hope you are enjoying this year's season of winter 2019-2020 updates. If you would like to become a patron for Gazworthies, then all you need to do, come to Gazworthies Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can give an ongoing monthly donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards to Gazworthies, and by doing that, you're going to become a patron. Whether you do it through Patreon or PayPal, you will get a mention in videos, and we'll say a big thank you to you for doing that. Big thank you to all of our donors, and a big thank you to all of our patrons. Right, so we're just under an hour. I think I've done pretty good there to get through 70. Started off with 70 tabs, but we had to add the Wikipedia page. Actually, it's just slightly above 70 tabs. I think done pretty good there to get through that in just under an hour. So I hope you found this video interesting and informative. We are nearing the halfway point for these winter updates already, can you believe? So it's quite shocking to think that we are nearly halfway through, but there we go. Time is getting on. We've been having a bit of a laugh so far, but I think it is all going to start getting a little bit more serious as we go through the next few updates. Well, that's it. 1 hour for this winter 2019-2020 update. This video will be placed on the winter updates and forecast page with a written summary going over everything that we discussed in the video. So you can come back and watch the video on demand, have a read of that written summary. It'll be probably sometime around 8 o'clock tonight, because I've got to do the live chat on YouTube. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask about this winter update, if you want to let me know what you thought to it, and if you want to tell me which of those September pack matches you think is the closest September 2019, then I'll be on YouTube, on the Gazworthies YouTube channel, between 5 and 6 o'clock, and we'll be talking about this winter update. But at an hour, that's all for now, and thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.